Subscribe and like and comment and share please. The kindness in a circle. The coffee shop on Maple Street had seen better days. Its sign hung slightly crooked, the paint on the window frames was peeling, and the bell above the door had developed a melancholic jingle that seemed to sigh rather than chime. But inside, the worn leather chairs held decades of conversations, the scratched wooden tables bore the marks of 1,000 coffee cups, and the air always smelled of cinnamon and hope. Maya had been coming to this coffee shop every Tuesday morning for 3 years. Ever since she'd moved to the neighborhood, she always ordered the same thing, a large coffee, black, and a blueberry muffin, and she always sat in the corner booth where the morning light pooled like honey on the table. It was her ritual, her anchor in a week that often felt overwhelming. On this particular Tuesday in October, Maya noticed something different. An elderly man sat at the counter, his shoulders hunched, staring into an empty cup. His clothes were clean but threadbare. His hands trembled slightly as they gripped the ceramic, and there was something about the way he sat so still, so similar that made Maya's heart constrict. Without thinking too hard about it, Maya approached the counter where Sarah, the owner, was wiping down the espresso machine. "Sarah," Maya said quietly, "I'd like to pay for that gentleman's coffee, and maybe a sandwich if he'd like one. But please don't tell him it's from me." Sarah's eyes crinkled with warmth. "You've got a good heart, Maya." Maya shook her head. "Someone did the same for me once, when I really needed it." She returned to her booth, and a few minutes later, she watched as Sarah brought the man a fresh cup of coffee and a wrapped sandwich. The transformation on his face here from confusion to understanding to profound gratitude here was something Maya knew she'd remember for a long time. What Maya didn't know was that the elderly man, whose name was Robert, had been contemplating some very dark thoughts that morning. He'd lost his wife 6 months ago. His pension had been cut due to administrative errors he couldn't seem to resolve, and he'd spent his last few dollars on bus fare to the social services office, only to be told he needed additional documentation he didn't have. That cup of coffee and sandwich weren't just food, they were a reminder that somewhere in this vast, indifferent city, someone had seen him. Someone had cared. Robert left the coffee shop with tears in his eyes and something rekindled in his chest that felt dangerously close to hope. 2 days later, Robert was walking through the park near his small apartment when he saw a young woman sitting on a bench, crying. Her professional clothes and leather briefcase suggested she'd come from an office, but her mascara-streaked face and shaking shoulders told a different story. Robert had lived long enough to recognize the particular breed of despair that comes from feeling trapped. He almost walked past. After all, what could an old man with empty pockets offer? But then he remembered the coffee shop, the unexpected kindness, the way it had literally kept him going. He sat down on the other end of the bench, a respectful distance away. "I'm sorry you're having a hard day," he said gently. The woman, whose name was Jennifer, looked up, startled. She wiped her eyes. "I'm fine, just work stuff." "I don't mean to intrude," Robert said. "But I've learned that sometimes work stuff is really life stuff in disguise." Something about his kind eyes and patient manner opened a floodgate. Jennifer found herself telling this stranger everything, how she'd been passed over for a promotion she'd worked toward for 3 years, how her student loans were drowning her, how she felt like she was failing at being the person she'd promised her parents she'd become. Robert listened. He didn't offer platitudes or advice. He just listened with his whole attention, the way people rarely do anymore. When she finished, he said, "You know what I've learned? The path we think we're supposed to be on and the path we're actually meant for are sometimes different roads. And sometimes the detours end up being the most important part of the journey." They talked for an hour. When they finally parted ways, Jennifer felt lighter than she had in months. She went home that night and, instead of numbly watching television, She pulled out the graphic novel script she'd been working on in secret for years, so the creative project she'd abandoned because it wasn't practical. Jennifer started dedicating her evenings to her art. 3 months later, she completed the script. 6 months after that, she found an artist to collaborate with. And as her creative work flourished, she found herself becoming more engaged at her day job too, paradoxically performing better once she'd stopped making it her entire identity. One Saturday afternoon, Jennifer was at an art supply store, buying materials for a vision board workshop she was leading at the community center. The teenager at the register, a girl with bright green hair and anxious eyes, was struggling with the computer system. An impatient customer behind Jennifer huffed loudly and made a comment about kids these days. Jennifer watched the teenager's face flush with embarrassment and frustration. She remembered her bench in the park, remembered Robert's patient kindness. When she reached the register, she smiled at the girl whose name tag read Luna and said, "Take your time." These systems can be really frustrating. "I'm so sorry," Luna said, her voice shaking. "It's my second day and I keep messing everything up." "Second days are always the hardest," Jennifer said. "But I bet by your second week, you'll be running this place." It was a small exchange, barely 2 minutes long. But for Luna, who'd been seriously considering quitting because she felt so incompetent, it was a lifeline. Someone had seen her struggling and responded with patience instead of judgment. It reminded her that she could do hard things, that everyone starts somewhere. Luna kept the job. She saved money from her paychecks. And when she saw a flyer at the store about an art scholarship for underprivileged students, she decided to apply for it, even though her mother had always insisted art was a waste of time. Even though she didn't think she was good enough. She got the scholarship. It changed the trajectory of her life. Years later, Luna was a successful designer, and she made it a point to mentor young people from backgrounds like hers. One of her mentees was a quiet boy named Marcus, who came from a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce and obstacles were abundant. Luna spent hours with Marcus, teaching him not just about design but about believing in his own potential. Marcus went on to start a non-profit that provided technology training to underserved communities. The non-profit grew, eventually employing dozens of people. One of those people was a woman named Carol, who'd been struggling to re-enter the workforce after years of caring for her sick husband. Carol's daughter was Maya. When Carol got the job, when she came home with tears of relief in her eyes, Maya felt a weight lift from her own shoulders. She'd been working 2 jobs to help support her mother, running herself ragged, surviving on coffee and determination. With her mother's new financial stability, Maya could finally cut back to 1 job. She could breathe. And on her next Tuesday morning, Maya went to the coffee shop on Maple Street, ordered her black coffee and blueberry muffin, and sat in her corner booth where the light pooled like honey. She felt grateful for this moment, for this place, for the chain of events she couldn't possibly know about that had brought her mother this opportunity. When she noticed a young father at a nearby table, trying to soothe a crying baby while juggling a diaper bag and looking exhausted beyond words, she didn't hesitate. She went to the counter and quietly paid for his coffee and breakfast. The circle completed itself, as circles do, in ways we never see and rarely understand. Each act of kindness, a stone thrown into water, ripples extending outward, touching shores we'll never visit, changing lives we'll never know. In the coffee shop on Maple Street, Sarah watched Maya's small gesture and smiled. She'd seen so many acts of kindness in this place over the years. She learned that kindness isn't just something we give you, it's something we pass along. Each of us a link in a chain that stretches backward into the past and forward into the future. The circle of kindness has no beginning and no end. It simply turns, carrying us all.